And tonight I have Ron Morehead back on my show after quite a while. I haven't had him on since I met him in Beachfoot. So I'm really excited to see what he's been working on and hear how his thoughts have expanded since Quantum Bigfoot. If you have any questions for Ron, please type them in all caps in the chat and I will relay them as I can. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I know a lot of you view the channel and support me, but don't forget to like, subscribe, drop a review or comment, especially if you're listening to this on a podcast. Those reviews, those comments, that's what boosts me so that other people that like the show can hear me as well. So if you have a question, type it in all caps. Don't forget to go show some love on Ron's stuff as well. Okay, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and bring him on. Thank you. All right, how are you doing tonight, Ron?
I'm just fine, thank you. I'm in my prime.
Oh man, I know it's. You said you're good for the night, so I assume that this is,
Well, that has a limit to
it. Same here. Same here. I go to bed surprisingly early for my age. But I also sleep in really late. Like I'm not a morning person. I never have been. I wish I could be. That would be amazing. I hear they're successful people. All right, so I have had you on my show a couple times now over the years, since before Quantum Bigfoot, and then I think right after you published Quantum Bigfoot. And we had a great discussion back then about the Sierra Sounds and about Quantum Bigfoot. Tonight, I do want to cover other things. However, Quantum Bigfoot is still very, very, very relevant in the Bigfoot community. As I shared with you before the show, I have a very open platform. I'm very open to hardcore on the ground researchers, and then I'm open to the more open-minded researchers as well. I have a platform that supports all research avenues because I believe that's how we're going to that's how we're going to solve this mystery. So when it comes to, this is the big one, when it comes to Bigfoot going invisible.
Oh, right off the bat, huh?
Right off the bat, I'm going to get into it, the nitty gritty, and let you go. But I have old school researchers. It seems to just get up their back and they just tense up and they're like a cat, and but the other researchers who have witnessed it or who have researched this, you have the answer to this question.
I have my suggestion because it's all based on physics.
Right.
And first of all, we have to get into the basics of what we are. We're all energy, frequency, and vibration. I hope everybody agrees with that. Even the old researchers who are flesh and blood people, in the old camp where I used to be. But once you understand quantum physics, you understand that is the most minute part of our existence. We're energy vibrating at a frequency. Einstein says if you can find that frequency, you can change matter. I think that's how miracles are done. So my point is, in 1933, Dr. Paul Dirac won the Nobel Prize for antimatter. It's the direct change between energy and matter. Matter and energy are interchangeable. That's the physics. You ask a physicist that, and he'll have to agree to it because it's fact in physics. Regular science won't because they're not made in that realm of thinking. However, the math in quantum physics says that energy and matter are interchangeable, and all physicists agree with that. At least I think they do. Einstein certainly did. And anyway, you figure that out, and it kind of answers a lot of questions because if you got these things can find the frequency to change their matter into energy, and that's what happens even when we die. When our body dies, our frequency continues on with our consciousness. Because energy can't die. But if you have an ability through a frequency to change your matter, you into energy, you wouldn't be able to be seen any longer. And your trackways would stop too because you wouldn't have the density. So that's in a kind of a nutshell, but it's a scientific explanation of how they can disappear, how anything can disappear if they find the right frequency. It just goes out of our perception. We see within 430 and 770 terahertz. That's our light's frequency. Even light has a frequency. You get out of that frequency, you don't see anything. However, some cameras can pick up that, and some people can see that, like in the form of a ghost or something like that. You'll see there's so many things going on outside of our visible frequency of light that you don't see it unless you have the special good eyes that sees energy. So there. So much more going on than what we don't that we can't see. There's things all around us right now probably that we just don't see. And if you can't see it, uh, well, the trackways are going to stop too because of density. So I think that answers the questions because it hit me one time when my daughter had a sighting. We found the trackway and then it just stopped. And I've been hearing these reports for a long time. The trackways just stopped, or here's one track right in the middle of nowhere. How does that happen? Well, it happens because they have that ability through their frequency. They can develop the frequency somehow. They have that aptitude or that not aptitude, but that attribute to change their energy, their matter into energy, and also come back. So that's my answer to that one. I'm not sure they all have that ability,
Mhm.
but the ones that are disappearing in front of people's eyes, which I've just talked to too many people that's witnessed that, and they're very credible. Most of them. Some of them, they got candles lit all around you, and they got all this stuff hanging around,
Uh-huh.
jewelry hanging from the ceiling and stuff. Well, you got to question what they're saying. But when they're a suit and tie person who takes you aside and really serious, that's you hear so many of those reports, and first thing you know, you just got to pay some attention to it. So
Right.
my quest was to see the science behind how things go invisible. They just go out of our perception.
I could see
Oh,
that. You mentioned in your research, the brief research I did on your research, about the pineal gland,
hmm
and how does that apply to Bigfoot research, specifically?
I think it applies to humans more than anything. And if you can
Right.
get that connection, you're able to have the right frequency within you to allow them to communicate with you either through mind speak or through your own, through they let you because they come into they lower their density into our three-dimensional environment. And pineal gland, as we all know, is inside of our head. It's the receiver, I think, for the universe, for our collective consciousness that we're all part of that we sometimes don't realize that, but we are. That pineal gland receives, but it's directly connected to the heart. So you have to get the heart and the brain in coherence because your outside brain, your analytical brain, is conditioned by our environment, it's conditioned by people that have conditioned you.
Hmm.
Some people think that because there's a clown out in front of your yard on Thanksgiving or something that you're Satan or something, or you're worshiping Satan. But I'm saying this: uh, you get those in coherence because your heart's going to receive that information through the pineal gland, then up into your brain. Now, your subconscious brain has got to be in coherence with your heart so that you make the right decision. A lot of times, your analytical mind is going to talk you out of what your gut feeling is. So we have a gut feeling, and you should pay attention to your gut feeling. That's how I see it.
I agree. I agree completely. Brandon said, I love Ron's way of describing things because it makes you think. I think I agree with that, but I also think making us get out of our little box and get into a more uncomfortable space and start thinking about things differently. I think that's really important in the field that we're all in with, whether it be Sasquatch research or paranormal research, anything of the weird and odd and strange, high strange. Um, so I wanted to know, bringing it back, the Native American tales there are of basically a rite of passage that if a Bigfoot is able to bend light or do whatever they do to change their energy and become invisible, that it's a rite of passage into adulthood. Can you tell me about that?
No, I have to get a Bigfoot to tell you about that. I don't know. That's a saying I know, but I have heard a lot of reports of them having to earn their right to. Well, they toy with people. I know the young ones. I think are always doing that. They were one of them doing it with us up there, and I think that they're trying to earn the rite of passage through showing you how they can fool you, and they do fool you. I mean, they toy with you. Uh, they don't interfere with you so much. They interfere with us, but
Right.
I just don't know the whole story behind why. Other than I was too analytical at that time in my life to understand how mind speak works, how frequency works and all that. And so I probably wasn't on the right frequency for them to communicate that way. And if they did, I wouldn't have realize it because I thought it was me thinking up something on my own. So maybe they were trying to, and this is according to the cryptolinguists, slow their speech down when I was trying to communicate with them
Mm-hmm.
to something that I might understand because it's definitely slower than the rapid articulation they had in 71, 72. 74 is when I encountered them outside of our shelter, which was unusual. And it was just me and another friend of mine up there. We packed some supplies in on mules and horses, and we were at our camp. These things already got to the camp before we got there. That's pretty unique. That was, and
Mm-hmm.
I know that's true. I got evidence that supports that. I wrote about that in my first book, I think, Voices in the Wilderness. But yeah, they were there then. They started cracking their rocks and whapping on this and whapping on that and whooping back and forth. And I started recording it, and it's on my second CD. And I got those sounds. Well, I got them. I was just very fortunate that night. In fact, they were very bold. That's the night I got to see a glimpse of one, and so did Bill, my friend. Very, very unique night for me and him too. These things are extremely elusive, and or they're just not around to see. I mean, they're around, but you don't see them. So
Right.
there you go with the invisible thing again. So I don't know if they were cloaking around us or what's the reason. Because they were so close to us. Sometime we should have seen more than what we'd seen. We set up camera traps, but they never worked. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
just didn't work. And of course, we were dumb then. Not that we're very much smarter now, but we've come a
Yeah.
long way with understanding, I think, and we're
Right.
starting to understand these things and the uniqueness of them. They're very, very intuitive. Very. I think they've been here longer than Homo sapiens. Really, I think that they have some of them. They're not all the same, in my opinion, but I think they've been manipulated by alien intervention into the genome of a primate, and I think they've been given certain attributes that they're showing, and we were too. We were given those attributes. We were created by a very high frequential being, and it takes a high frequential being to do any of this stuff. And aliens in that dimension, which is a very high ninth dimension, I believe, uh, can can manipulate things, and they have done that hybridization, hybridized this whole planet for years. I think eons really. And so I think because I've been in Nepal, I've been we researched the Yeti, the different ones around the world a little bit. And they're different, and they have different things going on with them. I don't think they all have the metatarsal break like most people think. Well, if they don't have a metatarsal break, it's not a Bigfoot. Well, everybody wants to claim it's a Bigfoot by the Patterson film, which is good. I think nothing wrong with that, except
Mm-hmm.
I think that is one that's been, I'm going to call it, diluted down from crossbreeding with humans. That's what the native lore says too. They crossbreed with their tribe. They also said they're spirit beings who can disappear. Well, they live in two worlds, they say. Where's that come from? That's native lore and mythology. And if there's a core truth to it, then you got to kind of examine that, and maybe that's what's going on. They can do that, but how do they do it was my challenge, and I think I got to that one with Dr. Paul Dirac. Uh, so anyway, I really like the Native American look at things. They got a lot of. They've been here longer than we have. Native,
Mm-hmm.
and then you got again. I went back to. I think that aliens have been here a long, long time before we were ever made, and we were like I say, made in the image of very high frequency beings. So I try to tell people just how important that is, how important it is to be a human, because we're here to experience things, and that's our challenge is not just to experience it, but to respond properly to that experience and not be a victim. Too many people want to be a victim of things, and I think if you realize that you're here for the challenge and you're here to grow, and you can change your high vibrational frequency
Mm-hmm.
via your response to the challenge.
I
Because
agree completely.
you treat yourself as a victim, you just
Absolutely.
act.
I'm a huge believer in getting rid of that victim mentality and being self-reflection, holding yourself accountable. If you've messed up in your life, pending murder or anything like that, if you've messed up in your life, you still have a second chance to redo that, to be better. And everyone deserves happiness, no matter what you've done. You do deserve happiness. And again, changing that vibrational frequency, which I am all about.
Mm-hmm.
So I was going to ask a question, and then you got me started on vibrational frequencies. Um,
I
but
ramble.
no. So I too believe that because I get this a lot. I've spoken on a few different panels. I've done different shows, and I'm asked different, basically, what do I think of cloaking? What do I think of these things? And I always tell people that my personal theory, or just something to think about, is that maybe these beings have access to a different part of their brain that we lost access to. Maybe we had this access one time, that 10% that we don't touch, but
Yeah.
the men who stare at goats and such do have access to that. Humans do have access, but not all of us. Maybe the Sasquatch kept, they retained that access. They obviously have access to their more primitive sides. We lost all of that when we created the wheel, in my opinion. We started gradually losing the things that we had access to because we made life more easy for ourselves, and we lost our primal selves, the things that kept us alive and kept us afraid of the things in the dark. I believe that these creatures have access to that, and therefore they may have capabilities that we don't have and can't fathom because we can't scientifically support it. Although, as you're saying, with physics, we can.
Well, quantum physics and spirituality are synonymous, in my opinion. I mean, because you get into quantum physics, you get into, because I was raised religiously, so I know a lot about scriptures and how all
Mm-hmm.
that goes, and it really fits right in with that upbringing. Because we're all spiritual beings, whether we like it or not. We're not going to die. Our spirit isn't going to die. Our soul, our consciousness, whatever. But our bodies will. And I believe also, which I didn't used to believe at all, but I do believe in multiple embodiments, that we have a chance to come back and challenge ourselves again with the same situation so we can respond better. Because we're all supposed to be made in the image of a high frequency being and be where they are. And that's I get into the Anunnaki and all that stuff because you look into the cuneiform texts in the Upper Samaria, Upper Mesopotamia, excuse me, for the Sumerians, and you find out the Anunnaki were the powerful ones that came from the sky. They were big, and they were doing things. That's who opened up the awareness to a lot of things that we have, and that's when the Bible would speak of them as fallen ones, and so a lot of people take off from that, and just about all written languages are derived and have the core out of the cuneiform text, and even our Hebrew Bible has, and it's the interpretation of it and what king was in charge just depends on what is allowed into it or not, because it's all about control by the government. Whatever government's in charge control the narrative.
I agree with that. Yeah, I agree with that. And that can sound conspiracy theory to most, but if you do just a tiny bit of research and kind of just scratch the surface,
Yeah,
it's a rabbit hole, but it's what we're
yeah.
raised to believe is a narrative. And I think that everyone should do research and think for themselves before choosing to believe any religion or anything like that. I am a
One
huge
hundred
believer in that.
percent, 100%. Yeah,
Yeah.
100. What religions seem to well, they condition you, and especially if you're
Yes.
raised in a church when you're really young, they
Yes.
try to condition you. But it takes people to open their minds up a little bit and be open minded to how things really happen. You got to do
I
your own
agree.
research to do that.
I
And
agree.
I totally agree that people should do their own research. Don't take my word for this or not. Just look, because what I say has some kind of a basis, a fact in it. There are
Right.
cuneiform texts. There's thousands of them, and
Right.
they've learned how to crack that code. And wow, you learn a lot, and you just got to keep learning because, like I say,
Yeah.
when you're green, you grow, and when you're ripe, you rot. So,
Yes. Yes, I agree with that. I love that quote. That's a great quote. I'll tell everyone, my thing is my great aunt is a Catholic nun, and I went through a crisis of faith in my early 20s where I started feeling that the church did not resonate with me, that religion did not resonate, and I was just
right.
having this huge crisis of faith because I was born and raised in the church and Methodist. And I sat down with her, and she first of all, she does not call him God. She does not call that her deity. She does not call it that. She calls it her creator, which
Right.
should have told me right off the bat. She was very open-minded. But she said, Lauren, she said, religion is a finger pointing at the moon. Everyone's so busy looking at the finger that they do not see the moon. And that is how she introduced me to the concept of spirituality and basically assured me that it is okay to be spiritual and not religious as long
Yeah.
as
Good for her. Yeah.
and it just amazes me to this day that she's a Catholic nun and she's retired now, but still does
Mhm.
works in a homeless shelter and does her good works and everything. But she was an amazing person, and I wish that everyone in their life had someone like her to kind of tell them it's okay not to be mainstream with that, and that you can be more open minded about things, even if it doesn't go with how you were raised. So
Right. That's
on
so
to the
true.
next.
That's so true.
Yes.
Very good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Everybody should go with that principle: love and compassion for other people,
Yes.
and that raises
Yeah.
your vibrational frequency. And we got to get to those levels before we're gonna, well, before we kick the bucket.
Right. You
Oh,
hope you get to those levels.
we're gonna have to come back and kick that bucket again, I think, until.
Yes, I truly believe that. That's why I preach kindness on this show. And I actually had a listener call me out the other day
Oh,
um, on not being kind and open minded about this topic, particularly. And at first I was a little bit offended. And then I came back and I really self reflected and thought about it. And I said, you know what? My reaction was flippant. It was not very stay safe, be kind of me. So I appreciated that listener for holding me accountable to what I preach on this channel. I use the word preach because I'm always harping at everybody to be kind and open minded. So to that listener, I say thank you. And I do try to leave an open platform for people
mhm.
to open their minds just a
Good.
little bit. Like, just if this is not something that you're into, you have the option to go listen to another episode with a different researcher that is flesh and blood science. But if you want to just think outside the box for 1 hour, that's all I ask. Just for an hour, set aside your flesh and blood, set aside your woo, all of that, and just expand your mind, see what happens in your research after that, because I think you should be able to try new things in your research.
Very good.
Expand your third eye. It can't hurt you. It'll be great. So you have come a long way. You did the Sierra. Well, you were. Let's just start with the Sierra sounds because you were already out in nature, backpack or horseback riding and everything off into the primitive wilds. And now you're here. All these years later, you're sitting in front of me virtually, which is a whole new thing. Also a advancement, but you're explaining that Bigfoot can become invisible and that they do have higher capabilities. Um, how has that process happened for you over the years? Like, did you ever think you would be sitting here talking about this today, the you
Never.
of the Sierra Sounds time frame?
Never, 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 never. I thought there was just an ape out there that hadn't been discovered too. Some kind of an undiscovered animal. We didn't know. I didn't have any idea how the mysteries that were going on with us at that camp could be actually solved. It's just something to woo somewhere. But when you hear what you think is all your supplies being tore out of the barrels that we had packed in up there and clothes and everything being spread around, well, you look out there later, nothing's changed. Well, how do you explain that? They hypnotize us all, or they have some kind of sound device? No, that wasn't the case. And then in the daytime, you hear that. I mean, there's so many mysteries. I read about these, but that's what brought me to quantum physics. And it was a slow process. It wasn't like it was something that just hit me like a ton of brick or something. It just, like I say, I was raised spiritually. So the first thing I started doing is looking in the Bible and seeing, well, where giants come from? These are giants. And one of the guys, he was very religious too. And he just wouldn't go back up there. In fact, that's how I got into the camp. The guys were late coming out. He wouldn't go back by himself. He got scared off so bad. Because these things have a huge amplitude, huge voice, and a huge footprint. It's just,
Mm-hmm.
it would scare you. But when you're back in there all by, you can't get out. I mean, not really at night. This is happening, and you sitting there with your guns ready, but nothing ever happened that way, which I'm so glad. And it's kind of all the mysteries going on when you think you hear a car door slam right out there, and you think you hear a herd of horses coming down at you, and none of that's really happening. Just they play with you, and I don't know how they create that other than they have a very expansive vocal mechanism, and they can make just about any sound they want to make. That's what leads me to think their frequency, they have a way of getting their frequency into the right vibration to change their matter into energy and disappear. So there. um, I didn't even
Well,
answer your question. What was your question?
that was the question. Basically, just how you came from, like you said, it was a gradual process. It wasn't any
Mm,
one event that led you to explore less ape ape theories to invisibility theories. But that was kind of my question, because I've done, so you're my 345th Bigfoot researcher to come on this show. Well, I guess I've had you on a couple times. So you're my 345th interview with a Bigfoot researcher. Um, and out of those, in the past 10 years, I'd say more and more of them are finding themselves having experiences or talking to witnesses who have had experiences with the less flesh and blood aspects of these beings.
mhm.
And the part that gets them is that it's not just, because I tell people, I'm like, it's not just Patty up there that makes Bigfoot a phenomenon. It's not just skunk ape over here. It's all these witnesses, right? So there's thousands of witnesses who have had the same experience in different states, different parts of the world. That's what makes the Bigfoot phenomena. Well, it's the same thing with these reports coming from these witnesses. They are having experiences that don't follow the usual Bigfoot witness report. So that in itself makes it a phenomena. And then also you have these researchers who are flesh and blood, die hard, and the universe is proving them wrong. The universe is throwing this in their face. And it seems like the more you scoff at this, the more the universe is going to make you eat crow. Um,
Well,
Seems to be my experience, as well as a couple I've interviewed.
in my opinion, nothing is just flesh and blood only, nothing living.
Right.
We are not just flesh and blood. What gives us our consciousness, what gives us our ability to have telepathy or telekinesis or any of those abilities that we have. I mean, we're not always a remote viewing. We're just not exercising those things. You mentioned this earlier, how they've gone recessed. That's because we've calcified probably our pineal gland, and we just haven't, we're not receiving and not doing anything about it because we've been so conditioned with our outside brain to think, no, it can't be. I wasn't taught that in fifth grade with Newtonian physics. But there's modern physics, which is only a little over 100 years old, and that's where you got to go. You got to go to see how that works, because according to Dr. Christopher Brer at West Texas A&M, everything from the atom all the way through the cosmos works from the laws of quantum physics. So I got these. I'm writing another book right now, by the way, and talking about
Okay.
this stuff more. So it's going to be explained a little bit more, a little more in depth, and I hope to get that out before too much longer. And it'll answer even more of the questions. That's what made Quantum Bigfoot so popular, because it's very popular, and I get rid of a lot of those things.
Yeah.
But, yeah, because it answers the questions. How come this ain't happening when you say in the name of Jesus, and then all of a sudden, no, that person didn't get healed. And I said in the name of Jesus. That's all you got to do. Well, there's more to it than that. You got the name of Jesus means the core of what he was teaching. Jesus never said worship me. He said follow me. If you just read the red letter edition, you'll find out a lot of nuggets in there that fit right in with quantum physics.
Mm-hmm.
Even though, well, I don't want to get religious on you. I'm not religious anymore at all.
I was going to ask, that's a very personal question to bring about on a large podcast, but we all have our own journey over the years, and
Mhm.
whether you choose religion, spirituality, I think everybody should follow what they feel resonates with them, as long as they follow not harming others, doing right, not wrong. I feel like it's whatever you want to follow. That's my
Yeah,
personal
and what
opinion.
you want to, yeah. I was with a man just today, who, well, first of all, before I went to his house, right, his neighbor has these ornaments of Halloween ornaments, skeletons and
Mm-hmm.
witches and stuff like that. We made a comment. He's like, those are the devil. I'm not going to worship the devil. I don't, because we went away. He didn't have. Well,
Mm-hmm.
you know, come on. It's where your heart is that counts, not what your
Right.
outside conditioning has been
Yeah,
placed
we
in
won't
you.
even go into how much Christianity mirrors paganism and how they have
Oh
taken
goodness.
several pagan holidays and pagan
Yeah.
traditions and turned them into Christian holidays and traditions. We will skip all of that for this
Okay.
podcast. However, if you
Good.
ever want to come back on and we want to have that conversation, I'm more than happy to.
No, I don't
That is
like
a
it. Wherever you put
personal
your
pet peeve.
wherever you put your energy is wherever you put your brain
I
and your
agree.
talk is where your energy is going to go. And
I
the least
agree.
amount of energy you can give into that subject, the better off you'll be, and everybody hears it.
I
That's why you
agree.
should always think good and talk good because it creates that energy that helps you. And
Yes.
negative energy will pull from you. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I have a fairy goth mother, is what I call her, and she is always telling me, Lauren, baby girl, your words have power. Watch what you say to people. Watch what you say out loud. Stop it. And
Yes.
then she also gets on to me for when she calls me when I get passionate about things, I expel that energy out at people. And she said, you kind of turn into a prickly cactus, and nobody wants to pick you up when you're being passionate and prickly. So I kind of have to learn to like rein my energy back and not blast everybody in the perimeter. Cryptidville had a great way of saying it. We are spiritual beings having a physical experience, which I love.
Perfect.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that very much. Okay, we had a question up here that I wanted to get to real quick from Joe Fox, and I think it's a very great question if you have the answer to it, or if you could ruminate on it a little bit for us. Does Ron think an encounter can be manifested?
Anything can be manifested. That's
Apparently, I'm
simple.
not manifesting hard enough because I've been at it for 20 years.
Well,
Maybe
it takes.
I think I really just I think inside I just don't want to see one. I think I do, but I
Well,
think I don't.
well,
I
there's
think
your
that's my
doubt.
problem.
Uh, well, can it be manifested? Yeah, I think they can. I mean, I think wherever you put your energy and your thoughts is what's going to happen. That sounds ridiculous, but it's quantum physics. You create your own environment basically, and that's hard to get your head around. But there's been times in my life, I don't know why I'm going to bring this up, but when all of a sudden you could have went this way, but you went that way, and that made more sense over here. But I went that way instead. I think we changed timelines at that point. I think
Mm-hmm.
there's different timelines going on. And otherwise, you create a paradigm, or I mean, a paradigm shift. So time is only in our linear environment, this 3D stuff we're going through. There's other dimensions out there, and I think, well, I get off on this subject too much, but it's just fun. I like this. It's a lot of
Go
fun.
for it.
I
Yeah,
love
go
I
for
love
it.
being on programs like this because I can spill it out.
Yeah. Well, I have to say, going from who you came across to be 10, 20 years ago, you've always been kind of a big name because of the Sierra Sounds and the other research and adventures, and works that you've authored, all of that. So for me to have it be you that really opened the door to people being able to read Quantum Bigfoot and study up on this and be more accepting of it. I think I'm very glad that it was you. And I
Thank
don't
you.
say that to be a suck up. I say we needed a big name and we needed someone trustworthy. Sierra Sounds have been proven to be authentic and legit. No hoax, no faking. That was legit, an experience that happened to you, and it changed the game for Bigfoot just as much as the Patty film. Um,
Thank
and
you.
I think that I'm glad that it was you. I'm glad that it was someone believable, someone authentic, and someone who has good energy about it, that's bringing this across. You're not shoving it down our throats. You're bringing logical information to us to accept or not accept. That's up to everyone else.
Well, that's a nice thing to say. Yeah, and I'm glad I'm the person because I mean somebody's got to do it, and
Yeah.
somebody needs to do this because religion has just put people in boxes and conditioned them
Yeah.
so much in this way and that. Well, we got a war going on right now over in the Middle East. It's
We
all about
do.
a lot of it's about religion, and it goes all the way
I.
back to Abraham. When
Mm-hmm.
the land that the Israel, we won't get into politics either, but Israel was also supposed to be given that land. Uh, sorry,
It's a whole thing.
it's a whole other thing, but
It is.
it's
But
the
I've
war goes
had
all the way back to that. The two
right.
twins coming out of Rebecca's womb. Yeah.
I recently was on a panel, and I had a person in the crowd, and this was in a southern state that, in the Bible Belt, and I had this person in the crowd, and she stood up bravely and she asked about cloaking and visibility, about energy frequencies. She asked about this, and out of everyone on this panel, no one was very supportive of it, which is fine. It was a more scientific minded researcher panel, but one person in the panel just shut it down immediately as, I'm religious, I'm a minister, and when they said basically that's not demonic and there's no demons, and they just like shut it down. They put it in a little religious box and then they shut it down, and that was the end of the conversation. And it did not give her an answer. It minimized her situation. And so I went into I believe that they could have higher brain function, higher capabilities than we do. I kind of tried to soften that up a little bit, but it just kind of, it, it more than irked me a little bit that it just boop, boop, boop. Okay, well, because of religion, that doesn't exist. Demons don't exist. And so Bigfoot, it's not a demon, it's not demonic, it doesn't have any superpowers or anything, because that's not what the Bible says. And it just, I was in disbelief that was the answer. That was the end of the conversation.
That's too bad. That's not called an open mind at all. That's called
No.
conditioning. And again, if people just research it themselves, they don't have to hear it from somebody else like you and me. They just need to research it themselves.
Right.
My first clue was when I tried to find out how a camel could go through the eye of a needle. Now that sounds strange, but that's biblical, right? It's easier for a
Right.
camel to go through. Well, look what the word camel is translated at. If you get into Hebrew, the same word for rope is the same word for camel. So there's just a little mistake right there, but it's enough to let you know there's our mistakes. It's easier for a rope, if you think about it, to go through the eye of a needle. It's not easy at all, but that's what they're suggesting, I think.
Right.
Than a camel. I've heard all these stories, but I've never even found anybody that knows where the gate is that camel's supposed to be able to go through.
Yeah, it's I think there's a lot of people. I think people fear these beings being more than flesh and blood. They're already they've had an experience, or talked to witnesses who have had experiences, or they're wanting to solve this mystery, and that's about as far as they can go. I think when they try to go past that, I think it's just too much for them to handle. I think they get scared, they shut it down, they do not want to think about it being that. Like, I'll be honest, when it comes to Dogman, I believe in the witness reports and I believe in the research that people are doing, but I don't want to talk about it because I don't want it to be real. And that's me minimizing that, exactly what people do to the woo situation. So, yeah, it's anyway. So I think I had another question up here. Let me go look real quick. I think you already answered this. If Bigfoot has human DNA, can it be older than humans? I think you already spoke a little bit about the hybridizing of
Well,
this.
let me add something to that, though.
Okay, absolutely.
I think this through the work I've done is, first of all, we got Dr. Curlin, Professor Curlin, the university sound engineer, who who did a study on our sounds to start with, and it was shown that they were inside, outside, below, and above the human range, all over the place. Their vocalizations, and he showed that they hadn't been manipulated, they hadn't been changed or drowned, or backed up, or speeded up, or slowed down, or anything like that. They were real. Whatever made them represented an animal 8 foot tall. At least a little snip that he checked that out with. 8 foot tall, that's bigger than most humans are. Then you've got Scott Nelson, the cryptolinguist, who says, who studied our sounds also, come back and says they have a language by the human definition of language. That means sapient speech like you and I are having right now. So you got those two things going on. And you got Dr. Lieberman at Brown University says only humans have the component in their throat, the vocal mechanism for human speech. That right there puts them, they have a component the same as humans. Now, what else they have, I don't know. If a lot of, like you mentioned earlier, a lot of our stuff has been recessed because of who we are and how we've been conditioned. But maybe they haven't been recessed. I don't know. There's one guy on here said he'd like to give me the word of God. Well, I'd like to hear that. If there's something I'm saying that's not with the Word of God. However, if you study the let me say this right quick. You study the cuneiform text, you find the word God is not even mentioned in there. It's all Elohim. And now a lot of it's been translated singular, a lot of it's been translated, depends on who wanted to say what in whatever text they were writing. But it's mentioned over 2,500 times. It's never anything but plural. And that's the word for God. It's plural. So that's like the fallen ones. And in my opinion, there's a whole lot more of them, but they're not all bad. The ones that went against the rule that they were not supposed to go, they were not supposed to interfere with human evolution, and they did. They showed us a lot of things, and that's all the way from the Anunnaki and the Sumerian Mesopotamian era. Um, anyway, I got that off my chest.
That's all right.
But these guys,
I know what
go ahead.
comment you're talking about. I think he was talking about that minister. He would love to pick up his
Oh,
sword of truth and go to battle with that person. Yeah, definitely. He was talking about that minister, which Cryptidville, if you'll private message me, I can kind of give you a little bit more of a rundown on that. But yeah, I think so. There's a presentation that I give, and one of the things that I try to explain to people in that presentation is education is freedom from fear. And that goes for Bigfoot, that goes for anything in your life, really. But I
dog,
apply it
dog
in that
brand too.
situation to
Your
Dogman
credit.
too. It really does. You're right.
Yeah.
And I give the example of snakes and my children. You've met my boys. Um, they they pick up the creepy crawlies, they bring them into my house, and I had no choice but to go educate myself on every way I could on snakes so that I could identify them and no longer continue to be afraid of them. Instead, now I get excited about them. So the same to me goes to Bigfoot. Instead of telling people or your kids that they are man-eating beasts and they're going to take your women and eat your babies and all of this stuff that we hear, treat them like anything you would in Mother Nature and show them respect. Do not fear them. Show them the respect that they are due as something who could take you out in Mother Nature. There's a lot of things in Mother Nature that could take me out, and I show them respect, a healthy respect. Dogman as well. I will do my due diligence and do my research on it, but yeah.
Well, fear is your only enemy. Fear is your enemy.
Yeah,
You can control fear,
absolutely.
nothing's going to bother you. I mean, you're afraid of too many things or anything. I went up to camp by myself 3 times actually in my life.
Mm-hmm.
It isn't fun, believe me, because you got to. But I chased that fear away. I had to know that I could handle this, and it's almost like my fear of spiders. I don't like spiders either.
Yeah, I'm not a fan.
But I don't fear them anymore. I just stomp them out.
I I don't like spiders.
But
I've
my
tried to use the snake education on the spiders and educate myself. It just doesn't
I was up there in 2011. That's the last time I heard the chatter of Bigfoot, and I was up there by myself. And that was a little concerning, I got to tell you. But I realized I can't let the fear bother me. So I was inside. It was daylight when I heard this big whap right outside the tent. I write about this in Voices in the Wilderness, which, by the way, they're doing a documentary on that whole thing right now.
awesome.
Hope be out about this time next year, probably. But I'm saying all that because I now think energy. They transfer their energy from their matter into energy, and probably, and you know, this is going to sound weird to some people, but they do this in trees. They can actually re-energize in trees, and they can be in trees. I've had too many reports of that. People saying they saw them go into a tree, they saw one come out of a tree, saying it had to be 4 foot wide in the shoulders, but the tree was only 2 foot in diameter.
Right.
I mean, so you got all that stuff going on by different witnesses, and you got to. I saw this on a guy's picture film one time. He showed it to me. He wouldn't show it to anybody else, and he was traveling along where they've been having Bigfoot activity. He just had his camera out the window of the car and take a picture. And when we got back, he started looking at everything, and he seen this. I watched it. This little tree about this big around. This head comes out of it like that. His head was as big as that tree is around. How did it hide? How come you didn't see it on the other side of the tree? Report after report. Just got another one the other day. A guy wanted me to explain that. How does that happen? Well, if they can transfer their matter into energy, that tells me that that may be what's happening. And they really get disturbed around us cutting trees. Clear cutting is where you get a lot of reports when people are clear
Yeah.
cutting trees.
I've
And
had experiences as well as reports of it went behind a tree, never came out.
mm,
Um, Ryan, my boyfriend, he did the same thing. His very first experience, I took him to Fouke, Arkansas, handed him a night vision. It was his second Bigfoot camp out of his life. He wasn't into Bigfoot. He had no idea about this. Handed him a camera. My research partner and I stepped away to um, open our minds and our energies a little bit and just kind of discuss. And he comes back over 10 minutes later and he says, I think I saw something. And he was like, it took him 10 minutes to get the guts to come tell us because he thought we would say he was lying. But he saw something on the night vision, full extension, quadruped mode, full extension, jump behind a tree. And he caught the flash of it, jump behind a tree. Never came back out. Same in Fouke, same area. We had paddled, canoed behind the gun range at Alex Smith Park. Bullet came over the berm and hit the tree above our heads, and that was terrifying enough. But when it did that, someone else in another canoe saw something move and went behind a tree. Never came back out. We rode directly to that tree, went up to it, nothing. Looked behind it, nothing there. Um, and this third incident, I have a friend who has gone on her shamanic journey. When you go on your shamanic journey, you go to Middle Earth or Under Earth. I forget how she explained it, but basically, she has hypothesized that maybe the Bigfoot live in that realm, and that the base of trees is how you get into that Middle Earth area, and that is where they go. They just interdimensional, go to that next Middle Earth, and then they pop out in different places.
interesting. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, it's something to look into. When you're bored, when you're bored, not writing
Well, no,
books,
there's
and
a lot of theories that they live under the ground,
mm-hmm.
and that's really well. I think they do when they're in the well. Keep going. You can go right down from the tree. I never thought of that, but yeah.
Right,
But there's also cave structures that they can get into, that,
definitely.
and they can walk. Well, we can hypothesize all night long, but
Oh yeah, for sure.
I don't know that we're ever going to prove anything. But it's a lot of fun talking about it, isn't it?
It is. I mean, you gotta kind of get out of your headspace a little bit. I know that I've done a lot of research over the years, and I've done the flesh and blood research, go out, boots on the ground, primitive camping. I still do that. That is what I do. I go out and I do that. But I'll tell you, the times when I have opened up my energy, and I'm an empath, and so I started just playing around with it because I kind of got to where I was just like, why not? I was like, I'm a researcher. I'm an investigator, and you have to try new tools. And I have a tool. Um, I have this skill. And so I was like, I'm just gonna try it. What's the worst that could happen? I started having more experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't really shared that on the show before, but I started having more experiences. And then I had a very I'm going to call him a good old boy, but he's one of my favorite people to research with. And one night he shared with me that he does the same thing,
Mm-hmm.
and that he was having experiences. And then so we started doing that together. And it started when we both realized that the infrasound or frequencies or whatever you want to call it, that we were both getting hit harder than anyone around us. And we had a very honest conversation about that, and realized that we both had these empath abilities, and that we could kind of use that in our research. And so when we started doing that, adding that in with night vision and thermal and all the stuff we're already doing, we started having more experiences and more intense experiences than we did before, than
Good.
just going out in the woods and beating on trees and such, all that good stuff. Hi, Chris. Thank you for making it tonight. I got to meet Chris this past weekend. That's one of my favorite things about going to events, is meeting the people who listen to my show. So I got to meet Chris, as well as a few other people. It was very exciting.
I
All
was
right.
in Tennessee last weekend at a convention.
Was it I forget which one that was.
Tennessee Crypticon or something like that.
Oh, yep. I think that's
Yeah.
what it was.
It was in
Yeah.
just out of Nashville. By the way, somebody asked where I live in North Carolina right now.
Okay. Yeah.
So got that.
Um,
Also, prior to that, I had a really busy summer. I,
I bet.
you guys know who David Pilates is?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I had him up there in my camp at 2018 to do a filming. He put that on as a missing 401, The Hunted,
Mm-hmm.
about 15 minutes of it. And if they look at this episode right after mine, it's about this tree hunter, this lady who's
Yes.
tree hunting. She's seen
Yeah.
that pixelated form going from one tree to another.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's what I had heard so many other times.
Yeah.
People seeing a pixelated form. Well, that's the energy, I think, of them going out. Your theory on this, or this thought about them taking the tree and go down to Middle Earth, boy, that's a good one. I never heard of
You'll
that.
have to look into the shamanic journey and look into what I think it's not Middle Earth. I think it's Under Earth or Inner Earth maybe. I
Under
know
the
two
ground.
people I know two people who have gone on their shamanic journey, and they're both going to kick me for not knowing what this term is, because they both explained it to me, and it was just amazing the way they explained it. And again, they were both hypothesizing about it. But I want to say it was Inner Earth, and it's kind of a dimension that you can visit. And I've had people talk about meditation and getting to that place, and visiting that, and you can see beings there like Bigfoot or other cryptid like beings there that reside in this dimension. But you go basically on this shamanic journey to see them. So it would makes and now every time I see a hole at the base of a tree, just a big burl or a hole, every single time I'm like looking at it, just kind of like, what if a
Did that
Bigfoot
squirrel
walks out
go
of
in there?
there?
He'd go somewhere
I
else.
know. Did the squirrel just go to like outer space? Where what is going to come out of that hole while I'm staring at it? And so I just kind of I side eye those little holes at the base of trees now every time I go hiking. So it makes for an interesting hike. I'll say that. I've never seen anything come out of it or anything. So we have just a few more minutes, and I know that you are working on another book. What appearances do you have coming up in the next couple months, if any?
Actually, I've just finished my last conference this year. I don't have anything scheduled next year, so I'm just
Oh,
working,
nice.
finishing this book actually, so I can get it out. I talked to another editor yesterday, and I just about got it ready. And David Pilates is going to write the forward for me, so
Amazing.
it's going to be good. I think it's going to expound a little bit more on what I've got already, but
Right.
it'll get into more what we talked about tonight. The more, how do they cloak? How does that happen
Right.
scientifically? How does that happen? Because if you don't believe in quantum physics, you're in a box. You're just
Mm-hmm.
a Newtonian 1687 box. And not that that's not important, because that's our 3D world that we live in. But you got to
Right.
get your mind outside of that and try to imagine the universe, because you can't. And understand that you will never comprehend everything there is to know in this body that you're in. So you have to get into that state of, like you are, meditation, relax,
Mm-hmm.
be in coherence with all three of your body parts, there, your pineal gland, your heart, and your brain, and you can make that happen. We're not shortchanged. The human race is so privileged to be a human race. I mean, we are. We're privileged to be here and to have the opportunity to experience all this stuff that we're experiencing. The key, though, is responding to it with love and compassion. If we don't
I
do it
agree.
that way, you're not going to help anything. You're going to hurt something if you go claiming yourself as a victim or something.
I agree. With this topic, with your book, you said you got to get outside your box a little bit, and so if this is hard for you to accept and you just don't want to, then you're kind of closing your mind off to possibilities that could solve this mystery for us, this phenomena. So rather than open arms, fully accepting this, do your due diligence, do your research, researchers, flesh and blood researchers, everybody. Because as he said earlier, he doesn't want you to believe it just to believe it. He wants you to research everything he says for yourself, everything that you hear or believe for yourself. And how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So you guys take little pieces. Open up his book, read a chapter, digest it, ruminate on it. If it resonates, it resonates. If it doesn't, that's fine. But just try to get out of your box just a little bit. Just one thing. Just try one thing. See how it sits. Sit
Mhm.
with it and then maybe take another bite. That's all I'm asking everybody to try to do, instead of just shutting it down because it doesn't fit the narrative of what you think it should be.
Correct. Very good. You got to say all that before I did.
I know. Cut you off. I'm sorry.
No, no, that's good.
Is there anything you want to add to that?
You did good.
Oh, thank you.
No, it's like a parachute. It only works if it opens.
It's true. That's a really good way to put it. That's a good way to put it. I tell people all the time, I'm sure my listeners are sick to death of hearing it, but a detective solving a murder, if he thinks this is the suspect and that's the person, he gets tunnel vision. He misses evidence that could lead to the actual suspect. We don't want tunnel vision. We want to use all the tools in our arsenal. And if we are shutting ourselves down to that, like we could be missing some good evidence there.
Well, that's a good point. If you have something bad happening in your life, you don't receive it as bad. You chase out all the good that could be taking its place. So when negative things are happening all around you, just stay happy. It's hard to do sometimes, but
It's hard.
but it's a mindset that you need to adapt. And I think when you do that, you're helping yourself and treat everything with love and compassion. Don't get mad at somebody because they threw a rock at you or something. It's their problem, not yours. And just help them out if you can. And give them the rock back.
I agree. I think
I don't know if I give them a rock back or not.
I don't think I don't give people second chances to hurt me, but I do give them
Well, then
kindness.
more about them. Yeah. It's just
Yeah,
about
I tell
learning.
people negativity is an addiction, and it's a very hard addiction to break. But
Oh
once you
boy,
do,
yeah,
positive thinking, positive mindset, it is the harder road, but it is the more worthwhile road. I always give the analogy of, when you were little and you had a pool. I don't know if anyone else had a little above ground pool, or even stirring Kool-Aid. This is another one I give. You stir the Kool-Aid and then you try to go against the tide, and it's hard. But when you get going, you keep going, and that tide turns. That is positive thinking and negative thinking. You're going with the tide, it's negative. You have to reverse that flow. And when you do and you get it going, it gets easier and easier to be positive minded.
Another example I used to give when I used to fly. I owned airplanes. I went up in Alaska and flew like those missions up there, and I give a talk to kids a lot, and I'd say, if you got two little puppies and you feed one and you don't feed the other, but just enough that he survives, the more you feed this one, the bigger he's going to get and the stronger he's going to get. So treat this as the positive puppy, and this is the negative puppy.
Mm-hmm.
The one you feed the most is the one that's going to grow bigger in your life.
Absolutely.
And that's a good example for little kids to hear. Whatever you feed the most is what's going to give it life.
Yeah. That's what I tell my boys. I tell them, choose to be kind. Every day as they go to school, I tell them, have a great day, make good choices, and be kind. Every day you have a choice, and you can choose to be kind, or you can choose to hit your little brother upside the head with a 2x4. So why don't we choose to be kind and not cause brain damage for, your little brother? That is honestly a daily thing in my life.
How far apart are your boys? I forgot.
3 years.
3 years.
So they're 7 and 11, and boy, I tell you, I do not understand siblings, especially sibling brothers. They are vicious, but care about each other so much. Also, it's just it's a very weird dynamic.
Unfortunately, we are a warring species. Our whole species is a warring species, and
absolutely.
Boys especially growing up, and there's some kind of a thrill because I used to hunt. It's just something that happens when you kill something.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
And I stopped hunting when I seen the eyes of the deer glaze over. I thought, this thing wasn't doing anything wrong. And then not that it's wrong if you can eat it. We
absolutely.
did eat, but still my wife wouldn't eat it. So
there's no point. There's no joy in it anymore.
But also I've seen my mother's eyes glaze over when she passed on. My dad too. I was in the room when they both passed. And, we're all going to pass. We're all going somewhere, heading somewhere. So it's important we do the best we can in this life to make things better for when we get out of this environment.
I agree. I tell people it's very easy to be negative. It's very easy to hate. Mankind loves to do that. If you give us a reason to go to war, we will. Actually, war seems to band us together better than anything. If we don't have a war or something violent or, to keep us busy, it seems like we just squabble and create problems. So, not to get into politics, but that's kind of how I feel. I feel like we're better when we're warring with something. Not that I hope it comes to that, but all right. So I think if anyone has another question, please post it now. I will give you 30 seconds and then I will call it a night. But I thank you again for coming on. It's been a really great show.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm reading these things now too myself.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's nice. Thank you, Chris.
I have really great listeners. I brag about my listeners. I get a troll once in a blue moon. I have a team of moderators, and they're so bored. They're so bored because my listeners they practice what I preach. They're kind. They're kind and open-minded, and if they do have a problem with the guest, they just kind of move on to the next show, which is pretty nice. So, yeah, I'm saying if Night Callers is a cult, it's one of the good ones. It's one of the good ones.
I appreciate you inviting me on.
Absolutely.
My website, if anyone wants to order my books, is ronmorehead.com. So.
See, you paid me back. You beat me to it. I didn't get to give my spiel. So.
I did it again, in case anybody missed that.
I'm sure that our visitors do want to know where they can go to see your work and support you and get a copy of Quantum Bigfoot. If you are been living under a rock and you have not gotten a copy of it yet, you can go to ronmorehead.com and you can see not only does he post his adventures there and photos of that, information on the Sierra Sounds and Quantum Bigfoot. You can buy that copy there. He also does blog posts that talk a little bit about each of the things that we touched on tonight. So you can kind of get more information about that as well, that you didn't get from this podcast maybe. So you guys, that is where you can connect with him. That is where you can support him.
I'm having my website worked on right now, but it's still up, I think.
It's still up. I perused it earlier. But yeah.
Everything I have is downloadable too.
Yes. So I love tactile books. They're my favorite, but I noticed that if it's not on my Kindle app, I'm more likely to read it if it's on my Kindle app. So yeah, definitely.
It's available that way. Yeah.
Yes.
Good.
All right. Well, thank you so much for, I think.
Or fake. Could it be possible that the two Bigfoots in the same area? Well, that's been answered.
Yeah, we answered that one, Alan, earlier in the show. So he kind of goes into cloaking, and he actually has an answer for that. So,
it was an antimatter. Dr. Paul Dirac, antimatter energy from energy to matter, from matter to energy is directly exchangeable according to quantum physics.
Yes. Alan always has great questions. He's been a longtime supporter of the show, so I'm very thankful for his questions. Alan, he takes me back sometimes with his questions. He'll give me some questions that I've never. It makes me think, and I'm just like, oh man, you had to ask me that on live air. Ask me that before the show, so I have time to ruminate and not look like I'm, struggling.
Also, I get questions quite often from my website. You can contact me through my website.
Yes. 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 So if you have follow-up questions to this show or I assume that your book, I assume that through all your witness encounters, that goes a lot into your book that makes you want to research different things and put those encounters. Do you put encounters into this new book? Are you putting encounters into this new book? Witness
Not
reports?
too many. No, I'm not saying unless they answer a question for somebody,
Okay.
I'm not trying to just give reports like most books do.
Right.
That doesn't interest somebody that's read all the books already.
Yeah.
I like to give answers to questions if I can. And people can, like you say, can either accept it or not. It's up to how it fits with them and how I say just go by your heart feeling on anything. When you have a gut feeling, use that. Go with your gut feeling, not with what your outside mind's been conditioned for, because so many people have been conditioned so many different ways throughout this planet. And if everybody just go by their heart feeling, we'd all get along better and they would know the right answer for everything. That's the spirit, the consciousness that works through every human being alive. And they would just learn how to listen to it.
I agree. I agree. I think that a lot of people, like you said, the pineal gland is kind of calcified over. But I think a lot of people, there's a big disconnect right here. I'm one of them. I will be completely honest. I'm one of them that um, my anxiety and this chakra kind of takes over to where it doesn't connect to this one anymore. So,
Well, that's what meditation's all about, though, Lauren.
yes, I
Yeah,
agree.
is getting those things in coherence so they're rhythmically working.
Yes.
And
Yeah. Yeah, I try
and
to do that every night, but
we can decalcify our pineal gland to a diet. You know.
I would love to hear more about that. I mean, if you're open to going into that a little bit, we have time. But
Well, it's in my book.
oh well, okay. You know what? You sold me.
Well, the biggest culprit is the fluoride. Don't get toothpaste with fluoride in it, and don't eat, your water. A lot of times, all your water's got fluoride in it. So get
Yeah.
water that's pure. Things like that. You can read up on how to decalcify your
Okay.
pineal gland. But
All
it
right.
is
There
in my
you go,
book.
folks. Buy his book strictly so you can improve your diet and maybe see Bigfoot. You heard it here
And
first.
meditate.
And
Meditate.
meditate, of
Yeah.
course.
Get quiet. Get quiet. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much again for coming on tonight. It's been a phenomenal chat. Honestly, I love I call them bar chats. It's where you can just walk up to someone and just have just a full conversation with someone you've never met, and it's genuine, it's warm, and it's real. Those are my favorite kind of chats. Fireside chats, I guess they could be called also. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for being real with me tonight and having this conversation.
I enjoyed it as much. I'm honored to be on you. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. You guys don't forget to go check out his website, ronmorehead.com, and like and subscribe this podcast right now. Also, I wanted to add real quick, it's the Fouke Monster Camp out this weekend in Fouke, Arkansas, Alex Smith Park. You guys go support them. And if you can't, share their stuff so someone might see it and go support them that's closer than you guys. So thank you all for being here tonight. Please drop a comment, leave a review, stay safe, be kind.